All right, good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. It's Friday again. That means one more episode of the E29 Baseball Podcasts. Again, I want to start by thanking all of our sponsors, Adam Schwartz Real Estate, 100% Media, and of course, Chihuahua Cerveza. Chihuahua out in Newport, they are open and fully operational. So if you're out in the Newport area, swing through, try one of their beers, have some food, and enjoy the day. Today, I was fortunate to have one of the local Riverside coaches in, Mr. Jason Klugg from Norte Vista High School. Jason, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, man.
This is your second trip in at the podcast world. So today we will kind of delve into some different things. And I heard a little bit of your first podcast. And so one of the things that I always like to start with for the coaches, mostly for me, because I like hearing everybody's story on how they transition from one part of baseball into another. So, again, currently the head coach at Norte Vista High School. So for everyone watching, why don't you give us a little bit of background on how you started, go back as far as you like with baseball, or how you ended up at Norte Vista?
Yeah, so I'm the head baseball coach at Norte Vista. I've been there for 5 years as the head coach, been there 9 years total as a teacher. Pretty much I grew up in Moreno Valley. That's how I know you. Played Little League, went to Moreno Valley High School, graduated in 2003. I had a serious arm injury in high school that kind of prevented me from getting any type of offers or really being a guy that people were looking out for, and so I had to go the JUCO route. And so I was fortunate enough to go to San Bernardino Valley College, and was given an opportunity to go over there, and I played first base and had 2 decent seasons over there, had a couple of Division I offers, but decided to go to a D2 because I needed a full offer. So I needed something that would not only pay my tuition, but my books and my dorm. And so I ended up going to Cal State Dominguez Hills, played a year there, redshirted. I had another surgery on my arm, had really bad shoulder injuries as I was playing, so I had to try to work through that. And then my last year in college, I transferred to Cal State San Bernardino and played for Don, and did pretty well there, didn't get drafted, went to a lot of pre-draft workouts, and I could swing it, just couldn't really throw the ball that well, and nobody was willing to give me an opportunity to play professional baseball at that point. And so I kind of held on to it for a while, and I tried to do the independent route, and I played about 6 games. We were like a traveling team. We would play certain teams in independent leagues. Wasn't really picked up on an independent team to where something that could support me financially. And so I pretty much, at that point, I hung it up. Don called me one day at Cal State San Bernardino and was like, "Hey, why don't you come and coach with us next year? You didn't get drafted, but I think you'd be a great coach." And so I coached with him at Cal State San Bernardino for one season as like a graduate assistant, as like a hitting coach. And once I did that, I kind of knew that I wanted to stay in coaching. And so I finished my degree. From Cal State San Bernardino, I went and got my teaching credential at University of Redlands, and from there, pretty much just started my high school coaching journey. My first job was at a small charter school in Paris called CMI, California Military Institute, and I coached there for 1 season. I was the head baseball coach, and then after 1 year there, that's when I started at Norte Vista. And I went over to Norte Vista, was an assistant for a couple years, and decided to take over Moreno Valley High School at one point for a year. I took over La Sierra High School for 1 year, but I was still working at Norte Vista High School.
Sure.
And so I would just travel, and I'd be the head coach at those schools. And then once Norte Vista opened up, I've been there for the last 5 years as the head coach. But I think when I was, right when I got done playing, and I mean, it's a tough thing because guys, they want to hold on to playing. I mean, pretty much after 24, 25, you would say. I mean, it's tough if you're still trying to get signed or something like that. And so after we had went around and played some independent ball teams and I knew that I wasn't going to be signed, that first year coaching at Cal State San Bernardino, and Don Parnell doing a good job of he literally just let me have the hitters. And that was something, I didn't have any coaching experience at that point, and just being able to do that, I knew that I wanted to be a coach. At that point in time, I wanted to be a college head coach. But for anybody that knows coaching, anybody knows that, baseball, it is tough to become a head college coach at, no matter if it's Division II, Division I. And so, here I am at the high school level, and I'll probably be a head coach for as long as I can be, man.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting because a couple things, and I always make mention of this, and it's funny because this morning my wife had asked me who the guests were going to be, and she says, do you ever write out the questions that you want to do? And she knows I kind of like to fly by the seat of my pants with this kind of stuff, because I said sometimes I ask the same questions because everyone's perspective and everyone's journey is different, and everyone, the way you looked at it, and you've already touched on a couple of things and I just talked to Steve about it earlier. When we have that transition from playing to coaching, some guys see the writing on the wall way before. Yeah. Some guys actually go into their college career and already know how they want to come out. Yeah. And then there's some guys that, man, I'm going to hang on until that last hamstring pops and then I'm done. So when you were transitioning into coaching, when you finished your playing days and before Don had called you, had you thought about coaching, or was that something that, well, I'm still in baseball and it's a way to keep in shape and I can maybe transition back?
No, man. When I went to Dominguez Hills, and it was a Division II, so it wasn't the highest level of baseball, but I had a really good year when I was at Dominguez Hills, and I thought if I could just get my arm, a little bit better, I had scouts telling me, hey, if you can hit a cutoff guy in the outfield, we would probably take a chance on you, or either sign you as a free agent, if anything. And so I had that stuck in my mind. My last year playing, though, I had to get a cortisone injection right before the season just to be able to play the year. And so I kind of saw the writing on the wall. I had a really good year at Cal State San Bernardino also. And so I didn't really want to give up on the game, but once the draft comes and goes, and you go out there and you try the independent ball route, and it doesn't look like you're going to make any money. Right. You have to survive. Yeah. My parents were in Arizona, and they had helped me my entire college experience. Sure. And so I didn't want to put any more burden on them to, come up with stuff financially while I'm trying to go find an avenue to play baseball. It was time for me to either, one, become a teacher, or two, just, hey, you need to get a job and support yourself now. And so, being able to coach at Cal State San Bernardino with Don kind of gave me some insight. Hey, this is kind of what it looks like, and this is what it looks like at the college level. And, from there, I just decided to get my teaching credential, found an opening at a high school, and just started my journey, and, here we are. So
now, was teaching something that you'd always thought about doing, or was that maybe the goal when you went into school?
I was really, when I figured my playing days were over, it kind of shifted to the teaching side. And so I was never really advanced in school as far as getting really, really good grades. I did well in college and stuff, but high school I really struggled. And so I made sure that I picked a major, and this is no knock on kinesiology majors, but I needed to pick a major that I knew I was going to graduate and I knew I was going to get a job. And so I picked kinesiology. But when I went in through my teaching credential and did my student teaching, I got to see that it was a lot bigger than baseball. It's a lot bigger than, teaching kids how to play a game, because you become a mentor to a lot of these kids. And when I did my student teaching at Moreno Valley High School, baseball was kind of like on the back burner. I was there. I was like a mentor to a lot of these kids, single parent households and stuff like that. And so I don't really look at myself as like a dad figure or a father figure, but I look at myself as like a big brother figure. And, as I've continued in my coaching career, I have to remind myself of that, because I get caught up in wanting to win and being successful, and it starts to become about me. But in reality, it shouldn't be about you. It should be about the kids and just helping them. You had your chance to play, and now it's time for you to pass the game on to the kids, and you have to be able to facilitate yourself for them, if that makes sense.
No, that makes absolute sense. And actually that's, that opening intro that I throw to the coaches is to let them see where they're going and where they've been for everyone that's watching. And what I try to do from there is pull out certain things. But, again, as I'm finding, I'm always talking to baseball people, and the path is similar. And what level or what age you start to see what you just mentioned always comes differently. And what's kind of cool is you're probably at the age where you probably could have been one of my players. I think you and Herb and those guys are all the same age. Yeah. So some of the coaches are my age, some of them maybe 5 years younger. So it's cool to see it through your eyes and see that you get it so young, because and it changes from every school. For example, when I was at Notre Dame, great experience, and I'm fortunate all my coaching experience stops were great. I don't have anything to look back and go, wow, I wish I would have. At Notre Dame, you have a private school environment, and now being in teaching, that's totally different. The home life for the most part is different than your public schools, and then depending on the public schools you go to. And so one of the things that we've talked in the past about is you are at that point right now at your age where you see yourself as a big brother. If we sit down and have this conversation in 10 years, you're in the father role and you become a mentor, and then, you start evolving past that, and even in teaching. And so every school stop that you've had, I'm sure, has given you kind of a different perspective now that you've been to a couple of different schools, and then even coaching at the college level. As far as your relationship with the players, what do you think that you've learned, let's say, from your first time with Don over at Cal State to now being a head coach for a few years? What do you think you've seen a big difference in your overall role?
More so like when I first started off, I was more of a player's coach. Mm-hmm. As an assistant, you can be completely different than you can be as a head coach. And every year, even during this time of us having a break from baseball and school and stuff like that, it's just like, I have to remind myself, like I was saying earlier, not to be so caught up on winning and stuff like that. But when I first started off, I was a player's coach, one-on-one with guys. But when you become a head coach, you have to hold discipline down in the program.
Sure.
You can be a nice guy, and some of the best guys that I've seen it, like yourself, you've been around baseball since I was a player, and you guys have a gift to where you guys can do both. You can hold discipline and have that good relationship. So for me, being 35 years old, being in my 9th or 10th year coaching high school baseball, I'm still learning how to, balance that line of being, a player's coach and having discipline, because it's hard. You know?
Well, it's tough too, because like I said, you're kind of at that line where you're going to evolve into another level of coaching. And now, before I forget, congratulations are in order.
Thank you, man.
I see that you just got engaged.
So you just got engaged last week,
fiance,
man.
Congratulations. If you want to say hello to her,
Lizette.
At least 8
Thank
people.
you for saying yes.
Well, Lizette, at least 8 people will see this. So but again, you're going to evolve into different. Eventually, you'll have kids, and that role will be different. You'll see your players differently and your responsibility to them. And so now, as you see the players that you come up with, you probably realize that winning and losing itself is not as important, but there's a lot of different ways of winning in practice every day, or winning for your players. It may not necessarily be on the scoreboard. It's more in the classroom or little hurdles that they have on a day-to-day basis, being there with them and going through whatever it is they're going through, especially with kids in that 14 to 17 range.
It's tough. And when it comes to winning, having talent is a big deal. You can have great coaching, but talent a lot of times is going to determine if you're going to be successful on the diamond. But that means nothing on everything else.
Sure.
For me, I can have a 500 season and get 6 kids into the university that have been with me for 4 years academically.
Sure.
And I'm perfectly fine with that.
Right.
And I will continue to try and figure out a way to be more efficient. And the biggest problem, or one of the problems that I have, is I'm so about it, I'm so passionate about it, that I have to remember that not every kid is like me. And so I have to do a better job sometimes of trying to burn them out, or not burning them out, as far as, I have them at weights in the morning, and then, we go to practice, and then we have games on Saturday in the fall, and then they're doing community service, and then they're doing field work. And so it's a lot. And then I have to look back to, when I was in high school, my head coach, Tommy Stokes, And I just look back and I was like, man, that guy did a really good job, and I need to be more like him and not try to do it my way, And so I have to remind myself, hey, you can't burn these kids out. Baseball is not the only thing. You need to be a good role model for these guys. So.
Yeah, and you have a unique perspective too, and because you see them in the classroom, and then you also see a lot of them on the field. And you mentioned not burning them out, and kind of tying into what I had mentioned before, the private school to the public school. When I left Notre Dame because we had a lot of success there, and I still have ties with a lot of those guys. John Chastain, that helps me out at the shop, he's one of those guys that now he's a head coach. And a lot of those players, they have that good, strong background at home where I started to realize, hey, with or without me in baseball, these guys are going to be okay. They've got a good foundation at home. Somebody is pushing them in the right direction. And then you move over to a public school where you might have a lot of your guys that are just there because I don't have a ride until 6 o'clock, or you know what, I don't have anything else at home to do, and I kind of like baseball, so I'll stay. So like you said, it may not be their priority. And you have a few guys that are there because I've always played baseball, and I don't know what else to do. And so that you really have to be sensitive, and you have to learn and try to connect with those, like you said, because you want them involved.
You don't want to push those kids away, because baseball is keeping them on that straight line, know. And that's, like I was saying, I gotta remember that, because they meet me and it's like, hey, who's this guy? You know, he's all about baseball, and it's like, I gotta do homework. I gotta watch my brother when I get home. I have to clean the house. I mean, baseball is not my only job, and so, I have to take that in consideration. But the thing that I've learned, as long as I reflect. And just understand that after every single season that I have to go back and, okay, here's what I think I did good, here's what I didn't do good, and I have to get better at it. Hopefully I can continue to evolve and become a better coach.
Well, and that helps, I think. We as coaches, sometimes and this isn't any profession, sometimes you get to a certain level and there's that tendency to want to just take that deep breath and go, okay, I made it, rather than continue to challenge yourself, like you're saying, and get better. Because even I might have been successful in one avenue this year, there's some kids that I didn't reach, or how do I get more kids to come to the program, or how do I get these guys to buy into the school first and then connecting. There's so many different things as a coach that you want to pass on. And sometimes when you have a lot of energy like you do, it's hard to get them to understand your passion from baseball came from everything that you got from it. And you want that same for them.
And a lot of that is getting them to believe in themselves. Like, hey, you have 4 years, right? You come in as a freshman. I don't care what school you go to, When I was in high school, Moreno Valley High School wasn't it wasn't the Riverside Poly or the Riverside Arlington, but I was able to make it to where played college and almost made professional baseball. So, but, not being able to burn them out, but also making them believe, like, hey, you still have the opportunity. You can make it. There's people from Norte Vista High School that have made it to the major leagues. There has. And there's been multiple people drafted from Norte Vista. And so, it's also making them, hey, you have a chance. If you work hard and you get the most out of your ability, you never know what can happen. But if you do not put in that extra work and you don't spend that extra time, because baseball is not work, okay? It's not like a regular job. You'll see what a regular job is when you get done with school, but it's just making them, hey, just do the best that you can, man, and see where the chips fall.
Yeah, which is an important message, because I think a lot of kids, and it's just the nature of being that 14 to 17, you get caught up in, well, I'm at this school and nobody comes and watches us, or if I was at this school then I would get more of an opportunity. And understanding that, hey, whether you end up playing baseball, whether you end up going to college, whether you end up leaving school and going to the military or a job, you have to make the most out of whatever opportunity you have, because it's still an opportunity. And so for some of these guys, we go back to those small victories. Some of these kids may have never gotten an opportunity to fight for a position. Now with the travel / daddy ball / showcase era, some of these kids might even start feeling that from that end. And high school might be their big avenue to showcase what they have.
Yeah, I mean, the game has changed a little bit. We don't have a lot of kids that play travel ball that come into Norte Vista. We have a few, but the good thing about our school is that you're given a chance to where, you could play 3 years on varsity at Norte Vista. You're going to be given that opportunity, and so you can showcase what you have. And we still play good teams, and I'm a firm believer if you're good enough, they're going to come find you.
Sure.
And if you're good enough, I'm going to go out and I'm going to go talk to a coach because I've played in the area. I've played
Sure.
at, I know the junior colleges, I know the university guys, and so I can give them a call when you get to that ability to where I say, hey, you need to take a look at this guy.
Yeah.
And so, just making sure that they understand that.
Well, and I think, listening to you and I kind of go back, you were still, I think, in high school when we met or talked. So, when I talked to coaches about why I actually started this, it was kind of a stumble into thing, but I'd always wanted to create an environment where coaches become more accessible to players because, even going back further than when you were in high school, when I was in high school, when you looked at a college coach or when you were in Little League and you looked at a high school coach, you did look up to those guys because they had a say-so in where you wanted to be. So there was some intimidation to it. And now I think with social media and all the different avenues, coaches are more accessible now than they ever were. Yeah. And meeting, I shouldn't say meeting because all of the coaches and people that I have in are all personal friends of mine. And I feel comfortable saying that I know that if a player watching this, maybe they were going to go to Norte Vista or maybe they're at another school or they see this from out of the area and they're moving into your area, that you're an accessible guy, that you can talk to them. And even if they're not part of your program, if they just feel connected enough to ask you a question about picking a college, playing in high school, just advice in general, that you would be more than happy to help them out with that. And I think that's more the nature of what a coach is that you're trying to help every player get to the next level, not just your players.
Yeah, you're giving back, man. And like you said, when I was a player, we looked up to our coaches, and now as a 35-year-old man, I look back and I'm like, every single coach that I had from, high school, I played football, played baseball, but my football coaches were awesome. My baseball coach was awesome. My JUCO coaches were awesome. My university coaches were awesome. And so, they all did that to me, and I probably wasn't the easiest to work with. Actually, I know I wasn't.
Sure.
I went through struggle, and and so if they dealt with me and they did it, very good, I have to be able to do the same thing. I have to be able to just kind of give back. So,
well, and that's another interesting point because I remember from coaching some of the guys on a day-to-day basis. You don't necessarily remember a lot of individual conversations because the days start to blur. When you're nonstop coaching, it becomes that cycle. And then you start to realize some of the guys that you were hardest on that maybe didn't have the most talent or ability, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years later, they come back to you and they remember it more than you do. And then you realize, wow, I really rode this guy hard, but he appreciated it. So for you, have you had any of those experiences?
That's funny. It's like hate me now, love me later.
Right.
And so, it's always at that moment, when you're coaching them, it's like, well, why are you so hard on me? Why are you always on top of me? Why are you always checking if I'm going to class? Why can I say this? Why can I do that? And it's just like, when you turn 24, when you turn 25, or when you become a parent, you're going to understand. You're going to be like, okay, you know what? He actually cared about me.
Yeah.
If I let you get away with that stuff and I don't demand the most out of you, right now you're going to be okay with it because you have a teenager's mentality.
Right.
But when you become an adult, you are going to have some regret when you look back. And I get that all the time, man. I mean, kids that I literally thought, had no admiration for me at all.
Yeah.
With social media, you're connected to everybody.
Yeah.
I'll get kids now that are 24, 25 years old, and they're just like, hey, thank you, man. And I was just, I can't believe that, he just said that, because we had it out when I was coaching him. So.
Yeah, and I think sometimes when that gets lost with players too, because it's hard for them to see you as something other than a coach. On the field, you do have a decision to make on what's best for the team, and it could be day to day. You may not start the same 9 guys on Tuesday that you start on Friday, but for them to understand that there's reasons for it, and for you to understand, or for the players to understand that there's love behind it. I'm doing this because I'm doing not only what's best for the team, but I'm doing what's best for you right now at this point. And now in 6 months, we might have another conversation. You might have something that you're going through right now that you don't see, and I'm trying to give you time to think about that, or I'm trying to create a situation for you to learn more than just baseball.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they have to understand, nobody's perfect.
Right.
We are in a specific role to where we have, we have some type of role to where we are in charge of you and we have to make those decisions. But I'm not perfect, and I try to make the best decisions that I can. And if I make a mistake, I try to make sure that my guys know, like, hey, I'm not perfect, but I made that mistake. I'm sorry about that, and we can move on from there. But like you said, I'm trying to do what's best for not only him, but also for the team and his future and stuff like that. So
because there's so much more to what your job entails as a coach than the wins and losses, like you had mentioned. And I remember going back, like I said, I've got a lot of years on you. Coaching has evolved in that way, because when I grew up, there was a lot more of this is how I do it, and this is the way you're going to do it, and this is the only way we're going to do it. And so you didn't really have a voice. It was just kind of that drill mentality, a little bit more of a military type style. Yeah. And you either fit into the peg or you didn't. And then now I noticed that because there's so much diverse instruction, there's kids that can move from school to school, and they have a summer team, and they have a trainer, and then they have a high school coach, and then they have a advisor, or whatever the role is. The kids have to be more adaptable and learn how to communicate. And then as a coach, it changes your role.
Do you still, obviously you've been around the game for a long time. You run your own facility and stuff, and you run your own teams. Do you still have that mindset now?
I don't. And I think, what's funny is I've had to tell a lot of parents when they play with me in the summer, you might not think it's as structured as you think.
Yeah.
Because of the way things have changed, I run my summer program more as a fact-finding, meaning go and play. Okay. I'm not going to give you restrictions. I'm not going to call signs. I need to see the athlete in you, because I find a lot of kids that come back and, the coaches don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Okay, well, what can you do?
Yeah.
And then they have to stop and think, well, I just need you to go play.
Yeah.
I need to see if you're in the right spot for you. I need to see if you're at the position that's going to serve you the best, or I need to see your tools on display, and then we work on it. And I've learned that because I was young at one point, and I was nuts and bolts about winning and losing. And one point you get on the bus and you lose that 1-0 game, and you're the only guy in the front of the bus steaming, and you turn around and everyone's got their headphones on, they're throwing stuff at each other, and I'm sitting there going, I'm not going to eat when I get home. I'm going to be upset. I'm not going to sleep tonight. They don't even remember it, and we just got on the bus.
Yeah.
So you start to look at it and go, okay, well, it's nice to have that 70-year-old mind where it's just off and on, and you go forward. So you have to change with the times a little bit. And like I said, you're on one level of it.
Yeah.
You've probably got two more
I
evolutions.
still need to move over, man, because I still get, infuriated sometimes. But I've seen you coach, and I think you do a great job. I think, for younger coaches, it's the opposite. They overcoach, especially with hitting.
Yeah.
And I think it's detrimental to certain guys. I've seen guys that have, decent hitters, and then you get with a coach that he just, he coaches all the athleticism out of them.
Yeah.
Or he tries just to do too much. At a certain point, you have to let the kids play. Use your practice time as the instruction time, but even then, they still need to figure out something on your own, you know? And so, especially with hitting, because that's kind of, what my forte, I would say, as a head coach. I can do everything else too, but I take pride in the hitting. And that's what I've learned the past 9 or 10 years, is that you don't have to cookie cut everybody.
Sure.
You can't, or else it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And the best thing to do is to take whatever the guys have and try to move forward with that, and try to make a plan specifically for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I think too, as a coach, you start to understand that the more you see games, you want to get to that point where you're just always competitive in the game. And so with the players that I coach, I try to explain to them, baseball, like no other sport, you're going to experience far more failure than you are success. Yep. That's just the nature of the game. We can game plan, we can pitch select, we can shift, we can do everything right, and we can still lose. But we can still take pride in what we did, because we executed everything we were supposed to do. The other team was just better than us by one pitch, or by one ground ball, or by one guy taking that extra base. And so in there's those small victories, because we did all of our homework, and sometimes it just doesn't roll your way. And so that doesn't mean you have to go through and scrap the whole project and start all over. It's just, hey, we got to try to find one more hit, find one more base here and there. And I think that's something that I always like to build on as far as my players and get them to understand you're not going to get the first job you apply for. And when they send you that feedback, there's a little bit of truth in that. You can either try to improve on it or you can complain that it was whatever the reason they didn't hire it. And so baseball is a great tool for teaching that perseverance for guys.
Oh, it's I mean, if you're weak-minded and you get into, I mean, high school is one thing, but when you move up into college and stuff like that, like you said, great hitters are 300 hitters, 350. I mean, if you're hitting 400, you're doing a really good job. That means 6 times you got out. And so, no, I agree there right with you. I mean, some of the biggest things that I've learned in baseball is just going through a hitting slump, you know. I remember going like 0 for 25 one time in JUCO, and I felt like I had that starting job. Like, I mean, I don't want to say I had it, but I was in the lead for it, moving into the season, my first year in JUCO, and that's a big deal, you know, because that's your first year of college. Am I a college baseball player, or do I need to go get a job? And so, you know, I had that. I felt like I was going to be the starter going into season. We came back in the winter, went 0 for 25 because I tried to do something with my swing in the off season or during the winter time. I actually remember exactly what I tried to do. I tried to finish my swing higher up, and I was coming off the ball a little bit, and I went 0 for 25 when we came back in the winter, and I lost my job. And you know, we started the season my freshman year at JUCO, and I had to win that job back. But that taught me something else too. You know, I had to watch another guy start in front of me, and then I got my chance halfway through the game. I got an at bat, hit a double, still sat. Got the start on one half of a doubleheader, went 2 for 4, he didn't, got my job back. And so just knowing that you can compete like that, you know, it gives you that power, like, you know, you can kind of do anything. So
well, and I think too for younger players understanding that change is part of it. You know, you can continue to struggle with what you're doing, but to be open-minded enough to maybe try a different type of hitting or to try a different set of timing or approach or even something as simple as trying a different workout routine. You know, how do I hit? How do I warm up? How do I practice? You know, even something like that can shake something loose for players. And so when you guys are on the field with your players, how do you just kind of give me a background on how you progress? And I mean, currently the situation, we don't really know when we're going to progress, but let's say, for instance, your day one in September. How does you normally lay out your preseason, your fall and winter?
So like when we first get out there, I have to just go through routines. I'll bring them in first. We won't even get on the field. And, you know, it's almost like a presentation. Like, here's what the program is, just a reminder. I mean, guys that are returners, they've heard it, you know. But the new guys coming into the program, they need to see the expectations on day one, you know. And then from there, we just kind of go through routines as far as getting on the field. We're not going to practice until you guys understand the routine. The first rule of the routine is be on time. You know, you're coming from 5th period to 6th period. You better be on time. Okay. And if you're not on time, you need to have a reason or a note or something like that. And so, you know, you start with that, and then you're going through the routines. Okay, so this is where you put your stuff when you get dressed. Okay, after that, you're going to wait in the dugout for me. I'm going to give you the practice plan. From there, you set up the field. You're given 12 minutes to set up the field or 10 minutes, whatever it is. And then we go through the routine, you know, playing catch. But every single day for about 2 weeks, right when we come back, it's just routines, okay? Once I feel like they've kind of gotten through their routines and stuff, that's when we'll start to play our fall ball games. Okay, last year we were able to play at UCR, and if we can do that this upcoming year, we'll do it. But most of our fall games are on Saturdays, and you have to make a roster to play. I open it up to everybody, not just the varsity players. So, you know, I will. I'll say, depending on, you know, how you practice this week, on Friday, I'm going to post a roster. And so it gives them something to look forward to. I don't really care about winning those games in the fall. I mean, I actually don't care at all. but it gives them something to look forward to, because it's a long time between when they come at the beginning of school till the season time, especially if you've been working out in the summer, lifting weights in the morning. They need something to look forward to.
Right.
And so, but every year I try to tweak it too. You know, I've added in new routines. I try to add in new routines every year. Last year I added in the overload hitting stuff, you know, and so weighted bat stuff.
Sure.
I added that into it. That was from Driveline. The year before that, I added in PlyoCare, velocity training stuff. And so every year I try to take something that I see maybe from social media or just a good baseball thing to do, and I will put it in. And so last year I did the overload with the bats, but also the Jaeger throwing program too. So.
That's interesting. I actually love hearing the pre-structure type stuff, because I've worked at some coaches where, you know, when I was an assistant, and I'm a big communication guy. I really like to do walkthroughs. I really like to do pre-setup information, because I want them to understand, because some kids learn by doing, some kids learn by listening, some kids you got to give it to them on a piece of paper. They have to see it, read it. But getting them to understand that the more we become routine with some of these things, we become more efficient at it. And then we save time. We may take a little more time in the beginning, get everybody on the same page. But once we're all going the same direction, that's when we really start picking up steam. And then you can start tying that, especially because one of the teachers and being on the field, tie that into the classroom, because so many kids don't understand, hey, I do this at a certain time, we're doing this at a certain time on the field. That still applies in the classroom. When I go home, there's time to study, there's time to read, there's time to go to bed, there's time, you know, so getting them on that structure is huge. And I really am glad to hear that coaches still do that, because I know that's a huge thing, especially for younger kids in that 14, 17. I think that structure and discipline is something that they really need.
Yeah, we'll turn kids around completely, man. I mean, I'll have a kid that maybe comes to me as a sophomore, comes to me as a freshman, and I'll talk to the mom or the parents, and you know, it's been a 2.1, a 1.8, a 1.7. I have a kid right now that is now going to be a senior, and I won't say his name, but he came to me with below a 2.0, and this is only credit to him because he's the one that did all the work. But just getting him in that structure, in that routine of being on a baseball team and having to show up for morning workouts, and nobody's going to be there to baby you. Like, you better be there, man. Yeah. And just like holding you to that standard of, like, you know, when you do your grade check on a weekly basis, because we do grade checks, like, you're going to run if it's below a C. And so unless you want to run 3 miles every Friday, you need to make an adjustment. Nobody's going to baby you, man. Yeah. Like, I'm going to hold you to that standard, and you better get it done, or else you're going to quit. And you don't want to quit. Right. And so I have one kid right now that really turned the corner with us, man, and just completely, he's like a 3.5, 3.6 now, came to us with another 2.0. We have another kid that kind of did the same thing, and it's not, I mean, it's the routine, it's the structure, but it's just, you know, the kind of like the light switch goes on for the kid. They become a little bit more mature, you know, and they take responsibility. So
yeah, and I think you could attest to this too, because you and I both know there's far more academic money for the players than there is athletic money, and a lot of kids don't understand that. But, you know, I remember I caught a lot of flack when I first took over as a head coach because I put in a 2.5 for the fall ball.
Is that at Notre Dame or Rancho?
That was at Rancho.
Okay.
And so I put in a 2.5, and they said, well, it's 2.0. I said, well, CIF is 2.0 to be eligible. But 2.0, you're being 2 days out sick, you're one bad test, you're not turning in homework, you're away from being ineligible. And I would rather you be a lot farther away from that than 2.0. And 2.5 isn't asking that much. And I said, eventually, when you get comfortable at 2.5, you'll realize how much closer to 3.0 you are. Yeah. And the other thing I would do is when kids would have progress reports, I usually one a year, you'd have the kids that the parents would say, well, he's not doing very well in school, so I'm going to pull him off of practice, and I want him coming home. And I'd ask him, absolutely not. Well, what do you mean? I said, well, are you home after school? Well, we don't get home until. I said, okay, so do you actually think that your 16-year-old is going to go home and study and try to get caught up? And so what I would do is I would ask them to let them come to practice. They'd dress, they would set up the field, they would come this close to what they wanted to do, and then they would spend the practice time in the dugout
doing
with their
homework.
books where I could watch them do that. And I said, that's actually, I always thought was more of an impact because I'm this close to what I really want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And all I have to do is my responsibilities.
Yeah.
But they had to do all of the grunt work. They had to rake the field. They had to do all that stuff, but they just couldn't participate in the fun part of it. And I always liked that because they knew that they were going to be accountable because all of their other teammates were out there. And so that peer pressure kind of works in your favor sometime.
Yeah. And that's how you kind of create the culture, man, because, having been doing it for about 9 or 10 years, it's so easy to go left when you need to go right, man.
Yeah.
So, having those kids in the dugout and they take it seriously and they get their work done, they're going to improve. And when other kids see that, they don't want to be that guy in the dugout doing that. They don't want people looking at them or anything like that. They don't want to be the outsider.
Right.
They want to be just like one of the guys. And so, I agree with it. I do the same thing. And if, there's tutoring going on, I'll say, hey, just go to tutoring, bring me back a signed slip. And, that way it counts. But we're huge on academics, man. I mean, that's something that, having done it now for 4 years, at Norte Vista, I don't think that we've kind of hit the mark where I want to be as far as winning, but academically we have hit the mark. And so, I think I have it down as far as what they expect from them on the academic side, and now it's kind of changing the routine a little bit to be a little bit more successful on the field.
And I think those go hand in hand. I think when you start creating accountability in the classroom, then they start taking a little bit more pride because they realize how much work they had to put in to get there.
Yeah.
It creates more of a college mentality because I don't think players understand until they get there how fast that can be taken away because it's a little bit more tangible at the college level than it is in high school.
Well, that and like you said, the academic money.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not – what's a normal scholarship? I was very lucky. I talk about it all the time to my guys is that my goal was to go D1, right? And so I think I had 2 D1 offers, and I was waiting on a third one. So I had Chicago State offered me a full tuition and book scholarship. Hawaii Hilo offered me a scholarship, and I was waiting on Cal State Northridge to offer me a scholarship. They never did. And just because, when you think of a scholarship, you think everything is going to be paid for.
Yeah.
It's not. And so looking into that, we found out, who's going to pay for your living? And so that's why I had to go to a D2 because they said, hey, we'll give you a dorm too. It will pay for your tuition, we'll pay for your books, and we'll pay for your dorm. And then what you have to come up with is the way to eat. And so I held, a job during the year. My parents helped me out too, but that academic money is huge because they don't offer full baseball scholarships. This is not Division I football.
Right.
If you get a tuition and book scholarship for college, that's like a full scholarship. And then if you can, on top of that, throw in academic money, you're good to go.
So on that note, that's something that goes hand in hand with what you talked about, the academics. And if you had some advice to give, even if it's just like to your players that might be listening or other high school players, having gone through that and your personal situation with the finances, what's a quick bit of advice you would give them as far as looking for a school or learning more about the actual process of being recruited?
Just understand that you have to take everything into consideration. Okay, you have to take in consideration where you're going to live. Okay, how much does the school cost? How much are the books? Are you going to be able to provide? Are you going to be able to get a job so you have extra money too? And so my advice would be for kids that when they get into college and they're thinking about getting a baseball scholarship or playing baseball in colleges, just be careful with those student loans, okay? Because eventually you're going to have to pay those back. It might feel like free money when you're getting it. For me, there wasn't a reason for me to take out any student loans until I graduated with my bachelor's. Everything that I owe for student loans now is just based off of post-bachelor's, so my master's. And so just be careful with that and try to do it to where financially you can handle it. Certain people, they can handle it. They can get help from their family and they can pay for it. Certain people are not in that. And so I would say try to maybe stay closer to home, see he's going to give you the most amount of money for your scholarship, because whatever they don't cover, you're now responsible for, and so you're taking on that responsibility. And if you don't have any money, you're going to have to get a student loan. Then you have to pay that back. So just be careful, man. Just make sure that, whatever school that you decide to go to, you can handle it. You can pay for it.
Yeah, that's good advice, because a lot of times, as a high school player, you're 17, 18 years old, and you've got a college offering you $1,000 or $2,000. You get flattered by that opportunity, and you kind of forget about the other part of it, and you think, hey, I want to go play there because they made me an offer. Well, I still have to come up with the rest of that.
Yeah.
And is that going to, at some point, hurt me from continuing at that school to have to go back and find another place to work out?
Yeah.
And so for the kids that do that, understand it's trying to find the best opportunity for you. And by all means, don't feel as though taking on student loans or taking on a larger portion of that tuition is anything positive. If you can hold out and you can find a place where you have a good place to play, and more importantly, to get your degree and graduate, and you can do it for far less money, then that opportunity is going to be the best thing for you.
Yeah, that's why JUCO.
Yeah.
JUCO needs to be a possibility for some guys. I'd rather have a guy go JUCO than go to like a private, D3 or something like that, just because it's a lot cheaper. And, once you apply for financial aid, you might get everything paid for anyways.
Yeah.
And so, you got to be careful with that, and just make sure you look at all your options. That's what I had to do. When I got an offer from a school in Hawaii, I was like, yeah, dude, I want to go to Hawaii, and, I'm ready. I told my parents that, and they were like, everybody was excited because I got a full tuition, full book scholarship. Yeah. And they're telling me it's a full scholarship. Well, when I went and looked at the paper, well, you guys are not paying for the dorm, you're not paying for food. And then we looked up how much it costs to live in Hawaii, and it's like, no, it's not happening. So,
and it's fun to think about that, but in the long term, how is that going to affect me afterwards?
Yeah.
And now a lot of times I'll see kids that maybe look at the JUCO route as a slap in the face. If I'm not getting D1 or I'm not getting D2 offers, and that's a reflection of me as a player. But I think one of the things that we try to explain to them, and you probably get kids that ask you this too, when you suggest any school, the first question that I always get is, well, do you think I can play there? Well, that's up to you, man. That's up to you, yeah.
Yeah, and if anybody thinks that it's a slap in the face to play California junior college, you're in the wrong, because RCC, I went to San Bernardino Valley College, and when I was there in 2004, 2005, we had some dudes, man. We really did. We had a guy on the mound that threw 90 miles an hour. We had guys that could swing it. We had multiple drafted guys on our team, and so any JUCO in this area, Chaffee is really good, San Bernardino Valley, RCC. You have a chance to where if you want to go D1, if that's your goal, that's a lot of people's goal, you're better off going to a JUCO first, and then trying to go outside of there. So
understanding that there isn't a school in the country that's going to hand you a starting position without working for it, and finding what opportunity is best for you, not only again on the field, but to graduate and get your degree and come out with minimal and in some cases no debt is phenomenal.
That's ideal.
And so understanding too that there are some times where if you're going to go the JUCO route, you're actually saving a few different things. Some kids may not be ready to leave home. Some kids still may need that 1 or 2 years, depending on your family situation, depending on where you are physically. Maybe you need to get stronger faster and fill out. Or it's also a great opportunity for someone that maybe in high school you didn't apply yourself as much as you should with the grades. Now I've got 2 more years to elevate that, and now I'm actually more marketable as a student after those 2 years.
Yeah, you need those 2 years, man. They help me out a lot. I know that. My GPA in high school as opposed to what it was in college is just night and day, man. And the light switch went off for me. My parents were moving to Arizona, and they told me, hey, we'll help you out while you're in JUCO, but from there you gotta figure it out and get it going. So just not having that option not to be eligible. I mean, it's like, dude, I was spending hours upon hours at San Bernardino Valley, man. I was taking night classes. I would just like lock myself in the library and just, and force myself to be a good student. Like if you work hard enough at anything that you do, like you're going to get better at it. And I just like, willed myself to get a 3.0 or 3.5 so I was eligible. So,
yeah, and sometimes you need that 1 or 2 more years of just understanding as a person from 16, 17 to being 19 or 20.
Yeah.
All of a sudden your priorities change, the way you view things and the way that you value that education changes. And so some guys need that extra 2 years. So now, for those of you that don't know, Jason is going to be shortly coming on to E29 and being one of our trainers. So now I'm going to kind of give him that chance for a public service announcement or a little promo of himself. So when you were the hitting coach at Cal State San Bernardino, just give me a little bit of background on, I won't necessarily say a philosophy, but what is your approach to working with hitters? Even break it down from like the college level to the high school level now. What do you like to do as far as setup or instruction, or what would be kind of your operational format?
For me, it's taken me about 9 years to figure out like a routine that I feel like that works with everybody. What I did 9-10 years ago is not the same thing that I do now. I start with dry work, man. Dry work for me is the best thing. And what I mean by dry work is just make sure somebody's landing in the correct spot. So after you get to your max coil position, some people call it a load. I call it like a max coil position. When you actually stride and come down in that certain point, I work on that, and I consider that dry work. You see a lot of guys online, social media, they're using the PVC stuff and stuff like that, and so from that end, I take that and I do a lot of dry work with guys, making sure that you're landing in the correct spot. And then from there, I can either do it on tee, I can do it on front toss, I can do it on live BP, but everything's a progression. So, from the tee, that would be the starting point, to the front toss, to live BP, to the game. That would be, step 1 to step 4. But I have about 4 or 5 drills that I do with my guys that they just work, man. They keep you in the strike zone. And once you master those drills, then I can do some overload training with you to make you a little bit stronger, try to get that bat speed up a little bit. And so I do a lot of dry work. I have about 4 or 5 drills that focus on keeping you in the strike zone as long as I can, keeping you short to the baseball. And yeah, that's about it, man.
Well, it's good to hear the word process, because, that kind of gets thrown around a lot now lately. And you mentioned there's a lot of, especially now, there's everyone that's got so much downtime. It feels like every coach across the country's got a video, or he's got some type of instructional book work or whatever they're doing, but which is all good. But the biggest thing for hitters that I try to impose is that you want them to understand the process of hitting, because just like in school, if I don't really have a sound understanding of what I'm trying to learn, it makes it hard going forward. And with hitting, what I've found anyway is that with anyone that has a hitch or some type of flaw in their swing, the maintenance is what keeps it under control. It never actually goes away because it's tough. When you're younger, you pick up a lot of things because you're not physically strong enough. You don't really understand what you're doing. So those things become so deeply ingrained that they're almost impossible to get rid of. But the daily work, the dry work, the flat ground work that you do as a pitcher, the tee work that you do is just a way for you to kind of keep those things sanded down so they don't flare up all the time. But I think that's good to hear. And of course, working with a high school hitter and working with college hitters a lot of times is different. Yeah. What's some of the differences that you've noticed starting at the college level and then moving down to the high school level?
Working with the college hitter, the bat speed is just better. They're going to have those basic mechanics already in place. The kids that I had at Cal State San Bernardino, who I had on my collegiate summer team when I coached back then, they're just at a higher level. They have a little bit more development, and so I can go right into my drills that I do with those guys. I might not need to do as much dry work with them because they're already landing in a strong position. They're already getting to their max coil point. They already know how to keep their hands close to their body when they're swinging the bat. And so with the high school hitter, it's just I have to rewind it a little bit. And so depending on, I might do some video work with you just to kind of see where you're at. And then from there, we'll do the dry work. And once you master that dry work, everything's a progression, though. So you have to master the dry work in order to get to the drills. Once you do the drills, you have to master those in order to get into live BP and stuff like that. And so everything's a progression, but I like what you said because for me, the dry work and the drill work, if a guy has a hitch or he has a tendency to drop the barrel or something like that, we kind of keep that in check throughout the season. And what I try to help guys do is, if I have 4 or 5 drills that I think work with every hitter, okay, you might only need 2 of them, okay? So my job as a hitting instructor is to make a routine for you, okay? And that's going to be different maybe than another guy. But we try to set up a routine, okay? Give you a routine, go see how it works in the game. If it works, that's your routine. That's what you need to do. And guys that have been successful at the plate, players, they know that. You have to have some type of routine. What Mike Trout does in the batting cage is not the same thing that Albert Pujols does. Sure. Everybody's going to have their own routine, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely, because that goes back to like what we had talked about with your program in general. When I do the training, the approach I take, and I mention this to players and parents, is that I'm trying to build an understanding for you to create your own routine. Yeah. And when you leave the cage, you're with me for an hour, maybe 2 hours a week, and then at the game or at your own individual practice, it's up to you to find what works best for you to get locked in, to see the ball, to get your rhythm, to feel comfortable to hit. Because ultimately, as a hitter, you can't control flight of the ball, but I can control my timing, my rhythm, my swing. And my goal is, or what we work on as trainers, is your approach and your swing. Yeah. Now, the result of the ball is going to happen. You could hit the ball 4 times in a row on the screws and still be dragging your bat back to the dugout. Then you hit the cap 2 or 3 times and a couple bounces and a shift, and you're on the base 3 for 4 times. So you're trying to learn as a hitter because eventually you're going to move on to another coach at the college level or another high school or at the professional level, and you're going to need to have an understanding of your swing so you can have good dialogue with them on how you can get into your groove.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. How often do you recommend for the guys that you work with, once, twice a week that they work with you at the cage, or is it just depending on the kid?
It depends on the player. Over the years I've had some players that no matter what, they feel comfortable coming the day before a game. Okay. And they want to do that. Or I have some kids that like coming after the game, and then we have a little more dialogue about what happens. And so, once you've built up a relationship with that hitter, it's easy to know when they come back and the things that they tell you went wrong. Okay, well, here's what happened. Yeah. I already know because I've watched you do this over and over. And then you ask them, when you're at school and you guys are going through practice and you hit, do you have time to work on the tee on your own? If you do, then continue what we're doing. Or for some kids, they're really, really structured about it. They hit every day. If they don't hit at practice, they'll hit off the tee at home, or they'll hit at night after practice. So
you love those kids.
It kind of depends on the player, and there's some kids that they're just not ready for that everyday routine. Yeah. They always have those formulas about college and professional players hitting 200 swings a day, 300 swings a day, whatever it is. Some guys are ready for that, some guys aren't. Yeah. So it's finding your comfort zone. And more now I try to explain to them, you just want to climb in the box comfortable and confident. That if it takes you 5 days a week hitting, then that's what it takes. If you feel like you can just take a round before the game, then that's what it takes. But it's more on your comfort level to get ready.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. No, that's good because you're talking about the mental side of it too. Because no matter, you can practice every single day. You can put in. I have guys that, that will do a routine every day only for like 15 minutes. Sure. So it's like, okay, practice is done. Coach, you ready? Yeah, let's go. Boom. We get over there, 15 minutes, knock it out. But they want to do it on a daily basis. Then I have some guys that, they don't want to do it on a daily basis. They'll do it once a week, but it takes 30 minutes, or 45 minutes. But we're all going towards the same thing, and that's having success in the game, but also having confidence when you step in that box. And I think that gets overlooked a ton.
Yeah.
Because if you're stepping in that box and you're doubting yourself and you're in your own head and you're not in the moment or in the flow of the game, you're making things a little bit tougher on you, especially when you face higher velocity too.
Yeah.
I mean, when you face 90 miles an hour, you better be confident or you're going to get gassed up.
Yeah.
So.
And it's hard because, again, this is one of those things that kind of we started with working with players in that 14 to 17. So many things that go on in their lives outside of baseball affect when you get between the lines. It could be a bad day at home. It could be your girlfriend not texting you back. It could be your teacher. And then they carry that onto the field because they haven't developed that maturity to compartmentalize or push things aside and focus. And that'll come. But, a lot of times it's just trying to get them to that point. Hey, you can go 0 for 4, but still feel great at the plate. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean you got to sell all your stuff and go play another sport. It's that being able to ride those up and downs,
Yeah. The buy-in on the process as opposed to the result.
Yeah. And one of the points I make when, you see kids, and we've all done this when baseball's around, you're watching and you see that guy take that third strike and you throw your hands up and why did he look at that? You try to explain to the kids, look, he's got 500 at bats and he can't do this every night. Yeah. It's just not going to work over, 200 days. Yeah. And they understand that. There's just some nights where they're better than you and there's just some days. But when they leave the field, I'm going to come back tomorrow and I feel like I'm just as good a hitter as I was the day that I went 0 for 4.
Yeah.
And being able to take that approach. And that's hard when you're young, so that's something too that as a coach you want to try to develop that confidence.
Yeah, and I had talked about this on the other one that I did, but watching the Michael Jordan thing and watching him take a break from basketball to join baseball, they have that Jordan rides the bus. This is different than the Last Dance thing that was on. It's on ESPN. I think it's 30 for 30. Jordan rides the bus, and just to watch what he did with the White Sox hitting coach, he would show up multiple hours before. He would hit before the game on a cage, take regular BP, play in the game, and then hit after.
Sure.
And for some guys, that's what they need. And for some guys, they might only need to take the BP before the game, whatever works for them.
Yeah.
So.
And that's part of what motivates people to stay in the game. And then that comes into that love of the game. When you, as a player, you have to enjoy not only the putting the uniform on and playing in front of the parents and in front of your friends and things like that, but the part that goes behind it. I have to look forward to going into that cage and hitting off the tee. I have to look forward to, even now, kids can take video of themselves and go home and look at that. I have to enjoy the whole process of it. And so, I enjoyed watching the game, listening to the game. Anytime there was a baseball player on talking, I just wanted to hear what he said, to find something about his thought process that I could learn, because you always have to figure out a way to overcome those hurdles. And like we started, baseball is probably more hurdles than it is easy walks.
Yeah. No, I mean, for me as a player, man, it was a while ago, but we just love hitting, man. I don't know. I mean, to me, it's just not work. I was obsessed with it, man. I mean, I was absolutely obsessed with it. I would hit. I mean, the only thing I needed was a batting tee and a net in the backyard. I didn't even use baseballs. I used tennis balls, but I mean, I was absolutely obsessed, almost to the point where it was a bad thing. I did too much. And then once I got to the university and I kind of like relaxed a little bit and didn't, overdo it, that's when I really started to have success, And so, I like to see kids like that. And there's still kids out there that love to hit. They love doing that type of, baseball activities and stuff like that. And so those are the kids that I think are able to move on and play, after high school.
Yeah, I think one of the things I miss mostly, and like I said, you're kind of a little bit young for that, and you're kind of on the tail end of that. But when I talk to kids, and I'll throw out a name even from 10 years ago, and they know who it is, or they've actually grown that love of baseball to beyond the playing part of it, you know.
Yeah.
Now I talk to a lot of kids when they come in on a regular time, and I'll say, hey, did you play a game this week? And they got to look at mom or dad. I'm like, you don't remember if you played a game or not, or did you have practice? I remember when we were kids, you know, we knew Tuesday night we had a game 5 o'clock, and our stuff was laid out on the bed, and I couldn't wait, you know. Or I remember listening to you know, my parents picking me up at school during March and spring training and asking them to turn on the spring training games, you know, and it was cool just to hear the players' names. And now you realize, well, it's not even an important game. It's just something that they do. But it was my first chance to hear baseball. And so when you find those kids that have that passion for it, you kind of almost know they're going to have a little more longevity because they appreciate everything about it, not just the activity of playing.
Yeah, and especially when those kids have talent too.
Yeah.
You know, there's still kids out there. I mean, a lot of people say, hey, it's changed, and, you know, kids are different now, and to a certain extent, I think everybody changes. I was different from you, and then, you know, these kids are different from me, but I still have kids right now that if I text them, you know, if we didn't have the COVID stuff, if I was like, hey, Saturday, 10 a.m., they're going to be there, guaranteed. And when you take that mindset and then you actually mix talent in with it, those are the kids that move on. Those are the guys, you know, like that I grew up with, the Herb Hudsons, the Mike Jones. Those are the guys that keep going. And then, you know, sometimes they make it to the major leagues and they're playing Major League Baseball. Yeah,
baseball is a form of study in its own. You know, I always joke because I didn't finish school, and I kick myself sometimes for not being a teacher, but you know, if you've had enough innings and played enough hours and seen enough pitches, there's got to be a PhD in there somewhere, because you understand everything about it. And so, you know, one of the cool things I enjoy too is, you were doing this a little bit before, is listening to Adam from the umpire's perspective and understanding, you know, because he and I have had talks, and I said, you know, I can tell you, if there was a timeout and the coach came out to talk to the pitcher, I checked out. You know, I'm kicking dirt, I'm looking at something, I'm looking at my glove, and okay, it's time to focus again.
Yeah.
But as an umpire, you've got to watch every single pitch, every single movement, every single, you know, and I've got to be locked in. And he made the comment earlier that a lot of the players don't even know the rules. You know, most kids don't either. If it doesn't affect me, you know, or the coach will get it. You know, he's going to argue it, then we're behind him, or if the umpire calls it, then it must be right. But they don't realize that there's a lot more to the game, and that, I think that's where the beauty of baseball comes in. You know, and I always like to try to encourage that in kids, and, you know, show them things and send videos and
little nuances.
During the games, I'll text certain guys, hey, put it on channel 5. This guy's throwing, he looks just like you. When I said, you know, you're kind of hitchy with your motion, that guy's throwing like you. But there's just so many things that you can instill as a coach. So before I close this out, I'll give you one chance that I usually give everyone to kind of, again, talk to the kids at home, talk to any prospective Braves that might be coming up in Riverside seeing this. Give me something about your program that you want to let them know, or something that you want to give them to kind of welcome them in if they're heading your way, or something that you might want to give them to kind of think about you and baseball and Norte Vista.
Just pretty much, you know, when we're able to actually go back to school and practice, you know, I know on my end and my staff, we're going to get the most out of you, you know. On a hitting side, I think you're going to get high-level instruction. I think you're going to get high-level instruction on pretty much every category, but especially with the hitting. If you come in as a hitter and you're looking to at least play college baseball, that is my goal for you. You know, first I'm trying to get you into college, but from there it's trying to get you a baseball scholarship. And hopefully, if you have the dream of playing professional baseball, you know, I'm right there with you. I'm going to try to push you to that area. So we're all about baseball, and we put in that work, man. I mean, we're not going to shortchange you. We are not the best high school in the area. We don't have the best reputation in the area. But if you're focused and your dream is to, you know, hopefully play college baseball or Major League Baseball, I will be out there every single minute trying to help you achieve that goal.
Good. Now, real quick before I forget, you have a YouTube channel or a page that you were telling me about earlier for your hitting?
I have a Twitter page.
Okay,
I made it probably right when I was going to come on with you, and it's just Coach K, and it's just a Twitter page. And so I put a lot of my hitting stuff on there. So if you go on Twitter, it's just Coach K. You can look it up and you'll see a bunch of hitting stuff. And I talk from stuff, on there, from rotational hitting, linear hitting, the kickback, the new PVC style of hitting. And so just there's a bunch of different philosophies out there. You go into a rabbit's hole online and social media.
Yeah.
And, I kind of talk about it. And, there's some really good hitting instructors out there online. And if you can find them, they're going to help you out. And so I've had the luxury of meeting with, Justin Turner's hitting coach, Doug Lotta, and Aaron Judge's hitting coach. I had a chance to pay and actually meet with these guys. And so I try to take what I've learned from other people and make my own philosophy with it. And that's kind of what I put on social media. So,
okay. Good. I just wanted to make sure we got that out there. And again, I don't want to take up any more of your time, but I want to thank you for coming out and appreciate it. And as always, I know we'll be texting and chatting. And for those of you, again, that might have missed it or don't know, if you follow me on any of our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, if you're on my Remind link, Coach Jason is available for hitting at E29. Hopefully we can get back on the field and we can have him do some work with us out there as well. And again, I want to thank my sponsors, Chihuahua Cerveza, 100% Media, and Adam Schwartz. And again, folks, I want to thank you for watching. And until next time, we'll see you.